Together we are going to make 2 different sizes of gorgeous, high quality, low cost, reusable gift bags. First, I know you've already downloaded your pattern. If you haven't, very quickly go to Belle by Jessi. The extra E is on the Belle, not on the Jessi. Go to my shop, download your pattern so you'll have all the pieces that you need, and we're going to get sewing. We're going to make the large size gift bag first, and then we will make the beverage bag. First up today, we're going to make our gift bag. So, of course, we'll need our sewing machine, thread, scissors if you want some pins to pin things down. In addition to that, we are going to need pinking shears. The inside of this bag will be finished by pinking, so you don't need a serger. You will need a safety pin. You will need one of these strap turners to help make our bow. And you need your paper scissors to cut the pattern out, and of course your ribbon and your fabric to make your bag. So we've got all those supplies here. You've got your pattern that you downloaded with your sewing instructions. So find the one for the gift bag, and let's get our pattern pieces. We've got 2 pattern pieces for our bow. We've got a pattern piece for the top part of our bag, and then a pattern piece for the bottom part of our bag. So get your paper scissors. Let's trim all these out, and then we'll lay them on our fabric and get our fabric ready to sew. Okay, I'm going to start with my biggest piece first. Let me move this out of the way. So the gift bag top, and it is cut on the fold, so it's going to be twice this wide, and you'll need 2 pieces for the front and the back of the bag. So I have a large piece of fabric here that I'm cutting from. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to fold the entire piece in half. That could end up being wasteful. I come from a production background, so sometimes I do things a little bit differently than you might do at home. Everything I try to do is to be as efficient and cost effective as possible. Cutting is one of those things as well. So from my selvage edge here, I'm going to fold over only as far as I need to fit my pattern piece on here. So we can tighten that up actually a little bit more. Now, I would not try to cut both of them at the same time. 2 pieces of fabric folded over are going to end up with the inside piece being about 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch smaller than the outside piece. So I'm going to cut this 2 times to make sure that both my pieces are cut directly from the pattern and that they're as close to the same size as possible. Now, you'll notice I actually don't pin things down when I cut them. So I like to use a pattern weight. This is something you can do at home too. You can buy a pattern weight, which is a metal weight with a handle on top. My favorite thing to use is these old irons. You just need one that's smooth on the bottom so it doesn't snag your fabric or tear up your pattern piece. But anything heavy will do. And this holds your paper pattern in place while you cut around it. It's a lot quicker than pinning everything and then taking the pins out. So anything heavy will work. If you have a small book, a stapler, tape dispenser, bag of rice, anything will work. So I've got my first pattern down on the fold. I'm going to cut this one out, cut a second one, then we'll move on to our next piece. right, so we've cut one piece from a large piece of fabric that I already had in my stash. But my favorite part about these gift bags is they are a great way to use up your scraps. I know you have a stash of scraps. We all do. So for my other pieces of my gift bag, I'm going to use some scrap pieces. So this is one. Only have a little bit left, but it's going to be just right to fit the bottom part of my bag. So again, instead of taking 2 layers and folding them at the same time, I'm going to do it one at a time just to make sure they're as accurate as I can get them to be. So I'm going to fold over only as much as I need, just like I did previously. Got my fold line right here that I want to line up. That looks great. I'm going to use my pattern weight to put on top of it. Trim around, and I'll do the second piece the same way. All right, I have the body of my bag cut out front and back, the top and the bottom sections. And now we have a fabric bow on this bag. The fabric bow is made out of 2 different pattern pieces, and it is going to be sewn securely onto the bag, so it will not come off. Somebody's rough with your gift bag, if it ends up in the washing machine or whatnot, the bow is going to stay attached to the bag. So again, I have a little piece of scrap I'm using for this one. This is a taffeta that's real lightweight and soft. I think it's going to work out well for my bow. So I need 1 of the rectangle, and I need 2 of the big rectangle, and I need 2 of the skinny rectangle. So let's fold this over. I'm going to cut my skinny rectangle first. Now for this one, if you want to pin it, of course, feel free to do that. My weight is going to be too big for this one. It's so small, I'm actually going to hold it with my hand and cut around it. Another little trick I love for small pieces, if you're not comfortable just holding it with your hand, if you trace this onto a paper towel and cut it out, the paper towel has just a little bit of texture to it that kind of sticks to your fabric and doesn't slide around as much. So that works really well for small pieces that you still don't have to pin down. For your bow, the grain doesn't matter unless you have a directional print. So whichever direction it fits more neatly onto your fabric is fine. I've got all my pattern pieces cut. Let's take it over to the sewing machine and put this together. The first part of our gift bag we're going to make is the bow. So grab your bow piece and you're going to fold it in half with the right sides together. You're going to stitch on 3 sides, but leave a hole in the center so you can turn it. All right? Now, I do sew like a production worker, which means I don't always pin things together. So I'm going to sew this without pinning, but of course you can pin it. If your pins are perpendicular to your sewing line, you can sew right over top of them and take them out after you've stitched it. I also have an industrial machine here, which is a little different than your home machine. I do not have a back stitch on here, so I have to physically stitch over again using the hand wheel to make my back stitch. So you may notice that's a little different from your sewing machine. Gonna turn my corner. Alright, so I've left a little hole at the top so I can turn the bow right side out. I'm going to clip these corners so that they're not bulky inside. Then turn it right side out and press those corners out, poke those corners out. A lot of people will tell you not to use your scissors. I do it all the time. Now we want to top stitch this hole closed. You can press it first if you prefer. I'm going to go ahead and stitch it closed now. So I have a top stitched edge on my bag. It just needs to be pressed. For the ties, you're going to take them, again, right sides together, fold them. We're going to stitch all the way down this long side. Then we're going to trim that seam allowance down to about 1/4 inch and turn them right side out. Alright, so now we have a shorter seam allowance, smaller seam allowance, so it'll be less bulky inside. With your little turning tool, you're going to just poke it through there, hook it on one end, and pull your strap right side out. Oof, this is ravelly fabric. Alright, now we want one end to be clean finished so we don't have these ravelly raw edges on our bag. So you're just going to poke it inside with your fingers, or you can use your pokey tool or your scissors or whatever you want. We're just going to fold it inside so we can top stitch that edge. Doesn't have to look that pretty. It's going to be just the end of your ties. But we want all those raw edges poked inside. Good enough for me. I'm going to top stitch that so it's closed. Same thing to your other tie. Let's take these to the iron and press them. Alright, so your bottom piece of your bag, pick out which one you want to be the front. They may be identical, but if it has a pattern placement, one piece looks prettier than the other, just pick out which one you want to be the front. We're going to take our top pieces and this raw edge, we're going to place on the raw edge of the bag where it's going to be sewn to the top part. So I like mine offset a little bit. You can put yours right in the center. This is where your bow is going to be placed on your finished bag. So you just choose where you want it, in the middle or offset to the side. We're going to stitch that right in place. Doesn't matter if they're lined up on top of each other perfectly, but we do want them in the same spot. Came unthreaded. Okay, if you don't already do that, a little lick and a little snip of the scissors makes that easier to thread. Okay, so I've got my ties attached here to the bottom piece. Now I want to get one of my top pieces in my bag, line those raw edges up right sides together. So this is what my bag's going to look like finished. Stitch that, and then we're going to trim it with the pinking shears. Okay, that pinked edge won't ravel as much, so that's what we're doing instead of serging, so you don't need to have a serger for this. We're going to press this seam open flat and then tack our bow down. I'll be right back. Alright, so here's the front of my bag. I've got my ties right here. I'm going to open them up, get my bow, and I'm going to tack it right here in the center on top of the ties. And a tack on your machine is just stitching over top of it, back stitching maybe 3 times, a little bit extra than a typical back stitch, to make sure it stays in place. This does not have to be perfect. This is your bow. It's going to get squished. The little center part is going to get squished to make your pretty bow. Alright, so there's the front of our bag. Now we're going to put the back side together. So same thing, I'm going to stitch the top of this to the bottom to make the back part of my bag with no bow. Alright, now let's get the front of our bag, back of our bag, put them together, right sides together. On the side, we're going to start down 2 inches. Back stitch here, and then finish the seam the rest of the way down, back stitch at each end. Now on the very bottom, we want to put the 2 bottom pieces together, stitch across, and then pink this edge. So we're going to come back up to our top. We're going to stitch from the top down, and essentially what we want to do is just leave a small hole for our drawstring to go through. So I've given you some measurements. You can also kind of eyeball it, but that's the goal. So I've got my seam stitched with a hole there that my drawstring is going to go through. Do that to the other edge as well, and then pink with your pinking shears both of these seams. All right, for our bottom corner, it's open. We're gonna stick our fingers in there, pull it so that this seam and this seam align. You're just gonna finger press them open. Line those seams up together. And then stitch across from the fold to the other fold. Pink that and repeat it on the other corner. Turn your bag right side out. We need to hem this top edge. We're going to fold it under about 1/4 of an inch and then turn it down, not quite an inch, but really what's important is just enough to cover that hole. So we want about 1/4 of an inch to give us a finished edge, and then turn it down far enough to cover this hole. So you can press 1/4 of an inch all the way around. I'm just going to fold it under with my fingers while I stitch it. Our bag is all stitched together. The top is hemmed with a nice clean finished hem. So now we can tie our bow. You're just going to take your 2 straps, tie a knot in them. You're going to kind of with your fingers fold this up, adjust it, however it looks cute and adorable to you or pretty or whatever. There we go. So our bow's ready. And now we're going to put the drawstring in the top. Get your ribbon. You're going to cut it in half. So you're going to have 2 ribbons that go around the bag. So put your safety pin through the end of your ribbon. You're going to stick it through the hole and use that safety pin to push it. You're going to go all the way around and come back out the same hole. Repeat with the other ribbon. It's going to start on the other side in the opposite hole. Start here, go all the way around, come back out, and then you'll tie a knot on each end. Trim your ribbon on both sides. And your adorable, beautiful gift bag is finished. It is perfectly sewn to last. You can use it over and over and over again. We're working on our beverage bag, which is a smaller size gift bag, and it's really just right to fit tumblers, water bottles, or even a wine bottle in here. So we're calling it the beverage bag. For this one, you will need the pattern and the pattern pieces and the sewing directions that go with that. You'll need 2 different fabrics, one for the top, one for the bottom. This bag has a stitched on, machine stitched bow also, but out of ribbon. So you'll need 2 different ribbons that can coordinate or match like this one, or 2 different colors, prints, patterns, whatever works for you. So in addition to those things, you will need pinking shears again. We're going to finish all the inner seams of the bag with pinking shears. You don't have to have a serger, but then everything will be finished so that it doesn't ravel too much, and you will need a safety pin. Otherwise, of course, your machine, your sewing thread, your sewing scissors, and pins if you want them. So we've got all our supplies here. Let's trim out our pattern pieces and cut our fabric. For this bag, you have 2 pattern pieces, just a piece for the top and a piece for the bottom. For both of these, you will need 2 for the front and back. That's all there is to it. So get your paper scissors. Let's trim this out. Okay, I've given you some fabric dimensions to cut this bag out, but a wonderful thing about this bag is that it is great to use up some of your fabric scraps. So you can look through your scrap pile, because I know you save them just like I do, and see if you have some that are the right size and that coordinate together. So that's what I'm using today. So I have 2 kind of small scrap pieces from other projects that I'm going to use for this bag. Now, if you can choose which one goes on top, which one goes on bottom, if you have a choice, or if it matters, if one is heavier than the other, it kind of works nicely to have that heavy fabric on the bottom. Gives your bag a little bit of body and sort of helps it to kind of hold its shape no matter what it is that you put inside of it. So one of mine is very soft. I made some napkins out of this fabric, and one of mine's a little bit heavier. I had made placemats out of this fabric. So the heavier fabric I'm going to choose to be on the bottom of my bag. So for this one, I am going to fold it in half so that I can get 2 pieces out of it. You'll see my fabric has a flaw, so I'm just going to cut around that. So I'm going to fold it in half so I get my 2 pieces. I'm going to take my bottom piece, lay it right here. I'm going to turn it facing me so that it's easier for me to trim these corners out. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I don't always do things the same way that a home sewer might, because I come from a production background where we're trying to get things done as efficiently as possible. So I like to use a pattern weight, or in my case, I really like these heavy irons. They're somewhat easy to find, as long as it has a smooth bottom on it so that it doesn't snag your fabric or rough up your pattern piece. These are perfect. They're very heavy. They've got a handle and they're somewhat compact. You don't have one of these, anything heavy that's small enough to sit on here will work. This piece is a little bit small, so it'd have to be, you know, a little book or something like that. Of course, if you prefer to pin, then get your pattern piece pinned down. Then let's trim it out, get our other piece cut out, and we'll be ready to sew. I've got all my pattern pieces cut out. Let's take it over to the sewing machine and put this together. For our beverage bag, the first thing we want to do is sew the top to the bottom for both the front and the bag. So we're going to put them right sides together and then stitch straight across, back stitch at both ends. Your pink and shears, we want to pink across this edge and then press it open. We have our seam pressed flat, so you're going to pick, if one side of your bag looks better than the other, you're going to pick the front, get your wider ribbon. We're going to make our bow. So we want to cut about 8 inches to start with. And this 8-inch strip we're going to sew right on top of the seam here. So we're going to lay it across the seam and edge stitch on each edge of the ribbon. All right, with the rest of your ribbon, you're going to make a bow. All right, get it how you like it. And then we're going to tack our bow right on top of the ribbon. Now you can choose if you want to put it in the center or if you want to slide it to the side a little bit. And what we're going to do is right here where the knot of our bow is, we're going to try to stitch right beside the edge. Sometimes you can push this little knot to the side, stitch right there, and then the knot will cover it so you can't even see the stitches. Broke my thread. All right, give me a second. Okay, I'm going to try that again because I only got it stitched through one time. Whew. Alright, much better. So our bow is stitched on there. The stitches are right here beside that little knot, and it is on there securely, so it's going to stay put. We'll trim it later. So right now, we just kind of want to make sure that we don't get it caught when we sew the seam, the side seam. But we're going to get the back, put it on top of here. We're going to start about 2 inches down from the top. And we're going to back stitch here and then all the way to the bottom and back stitch at this end as well. Alright, you're going to do that on the other side. So both side seams are the same. So start about 2 inches down and stitch all the way to the bottom from there. The bottom of our bag, we want to stitch this bottom seam, back stitch at both ends, and then cut it with the pinking shears. Alright, up to the top, we're going to start now at the top, and we're going to sew down, and I've got some measurements for you on the instructions, but essentially what we want to do is leave a little hole for our drawstring to go through. We're going to do that on both sides. So my seam is stitched, but you can see there's a little hole. That's where our drawstring will go through. Now you can trim these sides with your pinking shears. All right, on our bottom corners, we want to open the fabric up, match the seams, finger press them open flat. And then you're going to stitch from this fold to the other fold, back stitch at both ends, trim it with your pinking shears. All right, turn our bag right side out. So cute already. Okay, for the top, we are going to fold the top edge down 1/4 of an inch and then hem it, not quite an inch, but really what matters is we want to cover that hole that our drawstring is going to go through. So if you want to press this about 1/4 of an inch all the way around with the iron, you can. I'm just going to fold it with my fingers, and then I'm going to turn it over again for my hem, so I'll have a clean finish hem. And I want to make sure that my hole is exposed but covered so that my drawstring stays in there. All right, we have a beautiful bag. The insides are all finished with the pinking shears, or we have a nice, beautiful, clean finished hem here. So now we're going to put the drawstring in. You need to get your ribbon and your safety pin. Cut your ribbon in half. Hook the safety pin through one end, and then use the safety pin to insert it into the hole and push it through. That little hem that you've made is now a tunnel for your drawstring. You're going to go all the way around and come back out this same hole. The other ribbon, you're going to do exactly the same thing with the hole on the other side of the bag. You're going to tie these strings in a knot and then trim all your ribbons. You have 2 gorgeous bags that will last. They are well put together for you to use over and over and over again. And I hope you enjoyed sewing them as much as I did. Please check out some of our other videos for more DIY projects. Or for when you don't have time to DIY, go visit my shop for ready to ship bags and lots of other holiday and home decor. You can find me here, there, and everywhere online at Belle by Jessi. There's an extra E on the Belle not on the Jessi.
Yeah. And also like and subscribe. Yeah, so like and subscribe.
Thanks, boys.